Welcome to the Global Professionals in Portugal video podcast. This week's guest is Sarah Monares. She is a licensed counselor who practices in Colorado in the United States. As a counselor, she also is a life coach. She has a global practice for that. And she's a writer, and she's now living here with her family in Caldas da Rainha. Sarah, tell me a little bit about your journey.
Well, I think the beginning of realizing I didn't have to stay in Colorado was during the pandemic. Prior to 2020, I think telehealth was there, but not very much. And there was a lot of people who did not love telehealth for therapy. But then during the pandemic, a lot of therapy went solely telehealth. And so that really changed a lot for the profession as a whole. Prior to the pandemic, though, I was doing life coaching already and doing online, different workshops and groups, coaching groups. So I had already had a lot of familiarity with doing online programs. So being able to add the therapy piece to virtual as well is really what helped my husband and I really start thinking about, hey, we don't have to stay here. We can go anywhere we want. So
Have you been able to continue all that from Portugal?
yes. Mm-hmm. So there's legalities, right? So with therapy, I can only see clients virtually who live in the state of Colorado because that's where I'm licensed. Mm-hmm. So even though it's virtual, it's still limited to that, geographic limitation. But as you said, life coaching is a global, there aren't limitations to that.
Okay. So what is it, like a 7-hour time difference to Colorado from Portugal?
Yep. 7 hours. Yeah.
So do you work evenings here and kind of flex your time that way?
It's funny because when I first started, there was a lot of counting on the fingers. What time is it here? What time is it there? Trying to figure that out. And I've had to be a little bit creative, adding Saturdays, because in the evening in Colorado, it's the middle of the night here.
Right.
That's a boundary for me. I'm not willing to get up in the middle of the night. So I work about 2 p.m. here until, sometimes 11 p.m. And sometimes it's earlier. It just depends on the week. But and I've added Saturday hours for my clients who can't be seen during the day, during the week.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have something similar because most of our clients are on the East Coast of the United States. But there is a point, where I just become non-functional. So I'm like,
right.
I still operate on a daytime schedule here. I do know people who work here where they actually just switch their schedule to like nighttime, but I can't do that. I want to sleep at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I would be the best for my clients if I was seeing them
right.
at 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah. So now you're a pretty new transplant here. How long have you all lived here?
Middle of August.
Is US the only country you've lived in, or have you lived in other countries before?
Just the US. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Only Colorado too, actually. So it's a big, we never even moved out of the state before we moved here.
What are some of the cultural differences that have impacted you that you've adapted to?
I think that the cultural differences are really a big reason why we chose Portugal to move to. And one thing that I had a major issue with in the United States was the hustle culture, work yourself to the bone. Rest is not a thing you're supposed to do, right? It's
right.
Go constantly. I feel like the expectation of that is completely different here. And I really appreciate that. that's something culturally that I feel like I needed in my life. I feel like our entire family needed it. And there are a lot of beautiful and amazing things that I love about being here. And there are challenges, when you move to somewhere completely new. I think the biggest challenge for me is the language, learning the language, being able to communicate just very basic things like going to the post office or the doctor is something we've had to deal with recently.
Mhm.
Trying to make a doctor's appointment is a million times harder when you don't speak the language. So, and the beauty of that is we can learn the language, and we're working on doing that. And so I feel like it's something that's changeable.
So the letting go of the hustle culture, it's really just expected that you don't work on holidays and weekends and vacation.
Hmm.
It's commonplace for me to send an email on a Saturday and
Hmm.
just nobody even like responds to it. But other than that, are you like kind of off on your off time, or are you still kind of working constantly?
I feel like I'm still trying to figure this out because it is so ingrained. And I recently did a post on my social media about there was a couple instances in the same week where I had scheduled myself too tightly.
Hmm.
And that's something I'm used to, right? You go from one thing to another, and it's your schedule has to it has to work, because then the five other things you have to do afterwards, right? It all needs
Right.
to fall into place. And over scheduling myself is a big thing that I did in my previous life, and it's something that I'm really trying to change. But one thing I noticed is there was a couple of events where I was the first one getting up, leaving. Everybody else was still there. They were all relaxed. I was the only one that was like, come on, let's go. I got to go to the next thing. What do you mean 2 hours isn't long enough for a lunch? I thought that would be plenty of time.
Lunch can linger, yes.
So it's an interesting awareness to have. It's really good, but it's also the blending of the two worlds essentially, right?
Mhm.
When I'm seeing clients in the United States but living here, there's a bit of a how do you integrate the 2?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it can be challenging too because a lot of the people that come here are retired. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of, I know I have found that in many gatherings of people, I'm one of maybe the only or one of a few that are still working. And
Hmm.
so they're like, they can take a 4-hour lunch if they want and have a bunch of wine and take a nap afterwards. And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah. The wine thing is so funny because I've been to so many things where people are like, what do you mean you don't want to have wine? I'm like, I have to go see clients.
mhm.
I can't have wine and then go see clients. It's not going to work out.
You've adapted to a more flexible schedule, it sounds like, but you're also trying to kind of balance that you are working and so you can't have wine every day at lunch and then go be functional afterwards. What are some of the other adaptations that you've made to your new remote work life?
Well, for our family, everything is completely different
Mm.
because my husband doesn't work now, where in the United States, he was the primary breadwinner. He worked a lot. He was actually, gone a lot, and he worked really hard for a lot of years. So I had the flexibility and the ability to build my business, and now he's not working. And so I'm the primary breadwinner. So not only are we going from, you know, one culture to another, we're also the dynamic and the structure of our family is completely different also. One thing that's difficult with that for me is I get a lot of FOMO that I didn't have before because I was the one, doing most of the things. And now him and my son will go do something and I have to work and I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge shift in a relationship when the breadwinner, just because you're flexible doesn't mean you don't work. You still have to find time to work.
Totally. Yeah. I think coming into this move and new way of life, essentially, because it's really what I've tried to see it
Mhm.
as, how this move really hasn't been all about how do I want my life to be? What do I want my life to look like? And it's really important to me to keep boundaries. It's something I'm really trying to be consciously aware of is yeah, there are a lot of people out doing a lot of fun things, but I do also have to work and I do also want to be present with my family. And
Right.
there's a different level of awareness of the structure and what I am saying yes to here than there was before, for sure.
You did take a break from some of your marketing activities, it sounds like. Are you going to start re-implementing those, or are you scaling back? What's your plan?
Yeah, I did take a break. As you know, the move is a lot of energy and effort, emotionally, physically. So, yeah, I did take the opportunity to take a break from different things like my podcast and my blog, and am taking this time to rebrand in a sense, do some things differently than I was doing before. I like that I can have spurts of vacation, but when at the beginning it was a lot like I'm on vacation and I'm having to figure out how to work at the same time.
Right.
Now I do feel like it shifted to okay, settle in. This is not the mundane, but the everyday, right? But the beauty of being here is you can add a lot of adventure on the weekends or in smaller spurts as well.
Absolutely. What are some of your favorite things about living here?
Oh, it's a long list. Let's see. I love the food. I love the cafes. I love my new schedule. I love the time I get to spend with my husband and my son. And now my daughter's here visiting for 3 weeks, so that's nice. But I love the culture, the slower pace of life. That if you want to go and do something, there is always something there for you to do. I have never lived in the city before, and I really like it. I like being able to walk pretty much everywhere. We went to being a one car family, and that's working out well for us. I also like, Portugal's view on recycling and
Mhm.
having a better planet and, cleaner food. And there are so many things that bring my life more in alignment than it was
Hmm.
before.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of working. Do you rent an office? Do you have a home office? How do you actually accomplish your job?
I have a home office and I'm honestly in the middle of creating my space
Hmm.
here. We're in an apartment right now renting. We wanted to get to know the area before buying. And so that's been one of my challenges is finding my space of where I'm going to work. And I think I've got it figured out now. I've got it figured out where you can buy certain things that even where do I buy a desk or where do I buy a bookshelf? Even really simple things like that. So I'm in the process of really creating my at-home workspace now. But I think my profession it presents a little bit of a different challenge because of the confidentiality. And so
Hmm.
harder to go and work in like a co-working space or something like that.
That's why we run an office, because we have confidentiality. We have to rent an office and we have to have our computer screens facing so that you can't see them, like when you walk by the office and stuff. So because we're in finance, and so our client confidentiality is really important as well. But yeah, that you can't just go work at a hot desk and have a therapy session.
Right.
It definitely presents different challenges when you have that confidentiality component of your work, and it's a big part of your work. We spend a lot of time on the phone, and so you can't really be in a cafe or have to be in a private space. Are you going to do any new in-person programs here in Portugal, or are you keeping everything online?
That's a great question. I have no idea at this point. I have heard, and there is an element of my work that I haven't talked about, which is writing, which I have actually started a writing project here in writing for the local newspaper, which is really exciting. Yeah. So those types of things, I think it is really important for me to get integrated into the community here. But for mental health coaching, I see clients here easily. As far as the counseling piece goes, though, there's just, again, a lot of legalities and hoops. And I do know there's a big need for counselors here, English speaking counselors for the expat community. And that's something that I think I will look more into, as far as, does Portugal recognize my license, all of those things. So yeah, as of now, though, I'm not planning on any in-person things, but that very well could change at some point in the future. I take that back, because I am planning a retreat for September.
Oh, okay.
So that's in person. It's just people, it's people coming here. So that is an in-person thing that I'm planning.
We've talked about hosting a conference here. I mean, people fly to Vegas or fly to Orlando. That's commonplace to go to conferences or events at those places. And I think flying here is way cooler. So,
yeah, I'm like, who doesn't want to come to Portugal, right?
Yeah. So it depends where people are coming from. Obviously, it can be a much longer flight and more expensive. But once you get here, the cost of being here isn't really any more expensive than Vegas or Orlando. In fact, it's probably a lot less expensive to have a on par, vacation experience or conference experience. So
yeah, that's exciting.
So you're going to have an in-person retreat. You're seeing how your business is going to evolve. Now, you said you're kind of learning the language. Can you share a little bit about some of your journey with the language and how that's been for you?
Yeah. So I started some classes, or tutoring, I guess, and a few apps before we came. However, when you're not speaking it regularly, it's like it goes in one ear and right out the other for me. Yeah. So since we've been here, I've been taking a conversational class, but I think I'm ready now to kind of up my game, and I found a really great tutor. I think I'm going to start taking more one-on-one tutoring. It's really awesome to be able to learn a new language, and it's also really difficult. But I do feel like it's helpful to be here and to be able to be speaking it on a daily basis. It helps me a lot with retention of the information. But I feel like a lot of people here speak English, and so that makes it a little bit difficult, because when you go into a cafe and you're wanting to practice and they can see that you're struggling, they just switch to English. And so asking people to, bear with me and let me practice. But everyone has been very gracious and wonderful with that too.
What are some strategies that you use to either help with your business life or kind of help you adapt that you could share that maybe would help some other people?
I'm a pretty big believer that we create the life we want. And I think that for me, it's really important to be clear. It's something I work with clients a lot on too, is really being clear on what we want moving forward. A lot of, a lot of, you know, personal growth programs or therapy, even, it focuses a lot on what you don't want, what you don't like. And I don't really feel like that's helpful. It is to gather information. Sometimes we need to know what we don't want in order to know what we do want. But we have to give our brain the context of what we do want. We have to give it a new frame of reference. And so I think for me, it's really looking at how do I want my life to feel? What's the most important for me in this life, in the rest of the time that I have here? What do I want to experience? How do I want to be with people? And then looking at how do I create that? How do I create that in the structure of my schedule? Knowing, if I say yes to a bunch of things and don't create space in my schedule for the things that I really want to do, it's just going to put me back into the same life I was living before. So I think tools, really being intentional of how you're scheduling your time,
Mhm.
what you're focusing on, and getting really clear. What are your core values? What's really important to you? And so then you can put that plan into place in daily life.
So, can you share maybe one of your core values and how you put that in action here in Portugal?
Yeah. One of my core values is adventure and living a life that's brave. And I think our entire move has been about that core value, really being able to have adventure on a daily basis, whether that means walking or going to the beach, whatever it feels like for me that day, but also being able to travel around Europe. And I now have easy access to that where I didn't before. And also, time with my family, being present with my family, which is also another big one with the move here. So I think everything about this move was in alignment with the core values that I have, that my husband and I decided is the best for our family too.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, if you want to get in touch with Sarah and learn more about her offerings, all her information is going to be in the description or comments below, depending on where you're watching this video. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Cordelia, for having me